Good evening, folks. This is the 816 Fix with Darian Gray. So, I always like to get started by talking a little bit about my day. And usually, the title is usually based on something that I probably have gone through on that particular day or maybe a day prior. Today was rather challenging, a little bit taxing. Basically, I got up and I got started, got on out of the house and went to my office, one of my offices, and I had to deal with some things that frankly I didn't want to deal with. For starters, it's always difficult getting a new business started. It's always very difficult to get a new business started. And you can be as good as you want to be by yourself. But when it comes to working with other people, it's always a lot more complicated because in essence, you're crawling into bed with these folks. And you've chosen just that. You've basically chosen to start. It's almost similar to starting like a new lover's relationship. So here's what I had to deal with. So we're struggling with looking in the mirror to make it simple. Struggling with looking in the mirror. And generally speaking, when it comes to solving problems, the first place that you should look is inward. You gotta look in the mirror first. So I'm dealing with my business partners and I'm just trying to get them to understand that a lot has been done for them and now it's their time to do a lot for the business. And the big issue that I'm running into is sacrifice. It's like you gotta be ready to let go of the old life. If you're gonna move forward to something new, something better, then you gotta realize that those old things that you're hanging on to, that's all they are. It's just old things. And all they're going to do is hold you back. That's what I'm dealing with. And I didn't want to say too much about the day because it's going to cut into tonight's title, which is personal accountability. All right. Well, actually, the title says it ain't my fault. All right. It ain't my fault. But it's all about personal accountability. So one of the things that I've dealt with being a business owner is first of all, my own personal accountability, which is something that I personally, I don't think that I've had a major struggle with personal accountability throughout my life. But this is going to be it's going to be extremely paramount that if you plan on moving forward, moving ahead in life, that you learn personal accountability. So for one reason or another, for most people that I know, it seems like personal accountability is just extremely difficult to accept. Now, this is just my opinion, y'all. So why is personal accountability so difficult to accept? My opinion is the primary reason is going to be fear. Most people are afraid, especially afraid of themselves, but they are afraid of personal accountability. And we say, well, What do you mean by that? Well, first of all, one of the biggest things that people are going to try to avoid, one of the biggest things that I think people are afraid of is exposure. All right. Some people are so afraid of having the truth exposed that they'll say or do nearly anything to avoid it. And I got to take it back to what was going on with my day. Now, it's pretty simple. What I've been dealing with is kind of a slower process than I'm used to. And so instead of being able to dump tons of tasks and just get all of it done and count on the fact that all of it's going to be done in a certain amount of time, what I'm dealing with is now having to give out 1 or 2 tasks at a time, and those tasks are not being completed in the allotted amount of time. Now, sometimes the tasks that I give out, or at least the tasks that are plaguing me today, that I've given out, those tasks are pretty simple. Just editing documents that are already created. Now, all of the time and effort has been gone into editing these documents. So all my partners have to do is take the documents, remove certain words that shouldn't be there, certain business names that shouldn't be there, and readjust them for their own business name. A one-night job. And when I tell you that I'm coming across more problems just trying to get that task accomplished, I swear, some people, I struggle to believe it. I struggle to understand, like, where's this issue coming from? Why is it so complicated to get one simple thing accomplished? Well, you start running into some of these other excuses that I'm gonna start getting into, and I'm gonna come back to that point here in just a minute. I'm gonna come back to it. But fear of what, right? So I mentioned exposure. The next is going to be appearance. The reason, or one of the reasons that personal accountability is such a scary thing is because people are afraid of how they're going to look when the truth finds them. Okay? They're afraid of how they're going to look. Everybody wants to look good when they're doing things. Everybody wants to look like the champ, the hero, the pro. Everybody wants to look good. But the problem is, in order to look good, first of all, you have to do good. You got to do good. And if you don't do good, if you do bad, then you're going to look bad. So back to these documents that I was talking about. So if you've been given a task that you're supposed to have accomplished, say within 1 day, and then 7 days later, we still don't have this particular task accomplished, you're going to look bad. And there's no way around it. You're going to look bad. Now, you can say anything under the sun to try to avoid personal accountability. But at the end of the day, we had an agreement. If you agreed to have something done within 1 day and then 7 days later it's not done, then automatically you look bad. Most people are afraid of how they're going to look in the mirror. The reality of seeing what they actually look like is just too much. It's too great. And you can hold that mirror in front of them all day long, trying to, you can hold it up for them and, hey, here it is. You can hold that mirror up for them all day long, but at the end of it, they're not going to accept it. And it really won't do you any good, because the only way that people actually accept what's in the mirror is when they choose to stand in front of that mirror and look at it for themselves. Doesn't matter who tries to hold that thing up in front of them. That doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is when that individual, or the only thing that helps is when that individual decides to actually look in that mirror for themselves. Because at that point, they've accepted the fact that maybe it's them that they should be looking at, instead of looking at everybody else and looking to point the finger everywhere else. Now they've actually accepted the fact that they screwed up, and it gets easier for them to actually start working towards resolution. So another reason that I think I got some shaving cream on. Another reason that people tend to be so afraid of personal accountability is because of their feelings. All right? So they don't want the truth to be exposed because it's going to make them look bad. And then not only will it make them look bad, but it's also going to make them feel bad. And you start rolling into people's feelings with the truth, you start running into certain types of, like, a whole list of issues. Many people are afraid of having their feelings hurt by their own truth. I want to say that one again. Many people are afraid of having their feelings hurt by their own truth. So they start lying to themselves to save face. They'll lie to themselves first, and then they'll lie to you and anybody else who's willing to listen to the bullshit. They will lie in hopes of saving face. And I tell you, some of the tactics that people can use in an effort to hide from accountability, I mean, it can get pretty ridiculous. And I know I'm not the only person who deals with this kind of stuff. All right. I mean, it can get pretty outrageous when folks are just, when you're dealing with somebody who just struggles with accepting the fact that they fucked up. The truth is that there's a psychological issue that comes into play when dealing with this type of a person, right? There's like a mental block or something along those lines that happens to a person that absolutely prevents them from just admitting that they fucked up. Now again, I'm no therapist, so here's the best advice that I have for you. Now, when you're dealing with somebody who struggles with personal accountability, if you're actually down for the fight, you know, if you actually care enough and you're ready to go through that type of a struggle, then go ahead and have the fight. And I'm not talking a physical fight. I mean, go ahead and argue. Go ahead and get into it with that person. Confront them and try to help them to see where they went wrong. Because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take a serious struggle to actually get your point across with this type of person. You know, somebody who tends to hide from objective truths and reality. That's the issue. They hide from objective truths and reality. So here's some of those tactics that folks tend to use just to hide from the truth, to hide from objective truth and reality. All right. got some folks who are expert at moving the goalpost, right? They want to make absolutely sure that they say anything necessary to be sure that they score and you don't. They'll say anything to make it seem like this is the direction that we're supposed to be going, as opposed to the direction that everybody else is going. Moving the goalpost. And then you got a lot of folks who are expert at seeking sympathy. So you go to that person. Excuse me. You go to that person and you confront them. Hey, this was supposed to be done on Monday. Today is Wednesday. What's the problem? And here's what they pull on you, right? Well, I don't like it when people are trying to manage my time. I don't do well when people are trying to manage my time. I don't learn well when you talk to me this way. Your messages are so condescending. And the fact of the matter is, there's no condescending message. There's no condescending, right? That's one of those things, one of those statements or that I can't stand, is when somebody looks me in the face and they say, well, you're condescending. No, here's the real truth. I am confrontational. If I'm trying to get you to accomplish a particular goal, we have a date set, a deadline. And I come to you and I ask you if you have met the deadline that we agreed to, and you tell me no, you fucked up. And the crazy part about it is, instead of just accepting the fact that they did not meet the deadline, here come the tactics. Kind of like Kevin Samuel says, shame, insults, guilt, you need to be right. Here it comes. All in the name of saving face. And anybody can look at a situation and say, well, did you agree to get something accomplished by a set time? And if the answer is yes, and you didn't do it, then you don't get to start using all of these tactics. You got nobody else to blame. You got nowhere else to look. It's your fault. You did it. You blew it. Now what are you going to do to fix it? And people don't like this. People don't like to be confronted in this particular way because, again, it hurts their feelings. It makes them look bad. When at the end of the day, what they need to understand is all of this extra that you're doing to avoid accountability, that's what makes you look bad. That's what should be hurting your feelings, because you making yourself look like a big baby to everybody else, where you could make yourself look like a pro. You could make yourself look like a champ if you just admitted to your wrongdoing and then you go ahead and straighten that out. It could be that simple. But instead of doing that, right, we got to go for the fight. We want to argue. We want to dance around the objective truth. So we talked about moving the goalposts and seeking sympathy. The next move is the blame game, right? The first thing that, or I say one of the first things that people tend to do when they have an issue with accepting accountability is they want to point. That's his fault. That's her fault. Well, she didn't do it. She didn't do it. Well, I didn't know. Well, because you didn't tell me, or whatever the case may be, right? The blame game. It's everybody else's fault except for the person who's at fault. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who's dealt with this one either. The next tactic that people tend to use is this one of destroy him to save me, right? Kind of fits in with the blame game a little bit, right? But you have some people that are so fixed on being right, even though they are as wrong as two left shoes. They're so fixed on being right that they will say and do whatever it takes to destroy you, to make you come across as, say, untrustworthy, disloyal. They'll say and do anything, and they don't care how far in the mud they have to push you. They don't care if they bury you alive. They don't care. The only thing they care about is not looking bad and sparing their own feelings. That's it. They just want to save face, even if it means that even if there's a serious situation there, where if a person just told the truth about what they did, accepted accountability for what they did, then at worst, say in a job, in a work situation, at worst, they might get a write-up. But if they stick with the lie, then that means the next man loses his job. Somebody who struggles with accepting accountability, they're going to watch that person lose his job. And the next person and the next person. Anybody who's involved, they will crush that individual or those individuals to save themselves. And then one of the last but worst tactics that people tend to use are subjective truths. Now, anybody who doesn't fully understand what the term subjective truth means, feel free to look it up, okay? But this one is serious because this one goes, in my opinion, okay? And again, I'm no therapist, I'm no scholar at this, but in my opinion, the issue with subjective truths goes extremely deep. Extremely deep. And the reason I say this is because subjective truths open the door for lies. That's what it does. Subjective truths opens the door for lies, because one thing is for certain: every individual has a truth or a list of truths, right? Every individual has their own list of truths. You have people who let's see, one of the conversations that I had, or one of the way somebody explained it to me, was they used this particular analogy. They said, well, just because it's raining in Kansas City doesn't mean that it's raining in Lee's Summit, right? Or just because it's raining in Kansas City, Kansas, doesn't mean that it's raining in Kansas City, Missouri. Fine, that is granted. This much is very true. Okay? It's very true. But it doesn't take away from the fact that it's raining somewhere, right? So here's the issue with the subjective truths. All right? What people start saying, what their own situation was, and they completely lose sight of the big picture. They lose sight of the objective truth. Okay? If the objective truth, let me give you a scenario to make this sound a little smoother, right? So if the objective is to get is to create a document or edit a document and have it all completed, and ready for your business to use within one day, right? If that's the objective, then we've set a deadline and we've come to an agreement, and that's the objective. Let's get this done within one day so that the business can use it. Here's what ends up happening. subjective truth starts to creep in on some folks. Especially once the objective is not met, then they start to make up various different reasons. And for all I know, maybe it's not made up, maybe it actually happened. But you start getting the individuals' different truths, these different reasons as to why something was not accomplished. And I'm not saying that subjective truths are lies. I'm saying that the idea of subjective truth opens up the floor for lies. That's what it does. Well, my daughter didn't make it to school on that day and I had to stay home with her. So, and I had to help her with her schoolwork and her homework. And I didn't have enough time. I wasn't able to get that accomplished. Now, I don't know if this is the truth or not. I have no clue. And this is why I don't acknowledge subjective truths when there is an objective in place. So here's another way that I tend to explain it to folks. Now, this is a true story. This is something that happened to me early on in business. There's a governing entity for the state contracts that I have. And I won't even mention the name of this group, but just know that they serve as like the investigators and the police for people for companies, businesses who have contracts like mine. So we're just gonna call them the investigators. So about 6 or 7 months into business, the investigators called and they said, hey, we're gonna be coming by to run an audit. We need to take a look at this document and these documents. And they gave me a whole list of things that they wanted to audit. Right. And I want to say 7 months in, I might have had about 60 or 70 clients, somewhere along those lines. And the investigators come in and they gave me a list of 30 folks that they wanted to look at. And they start looking and checking and they start finding problems. And I'm just kind of peeping in the office every blue moon just to kind of look over their shoulders, to kind of thinking I could kind of get a feel for what was going on in there. Well, before they left, what they told me was, hey, we found various different issues with your timesheets. And they said we could look further, but we're just going to stick with the issue of the timesheets. And they took that information and they made their copies and then they left. About a week later, I get a phone call from the investigators letting me know the damages of what it is they found. Now, these issues with these timesheets, right? First of all, let me clear something up. When it comes to the timesheets, my clients have employees, and those employees are all shown how to fill out a timesheet. Now, my business, I have employees, and my employees are also shown exactly how the timesheets were supposed to be filled out. And everything is color coded. It's all made as simple as possible. And even if I can't trust, say, the client's employee, I should at least be able to trust my own employees because we've been trained on this, right? So a whole list of the client's employees, they've been bringing in these timesheets, and the timesheets have been bad. They're missing clock in times, clock out times, and some of them have times listed, but there's no AM, no PM, right? Some are missing dates. Some are even missing signatures. And I start to look around at my office employees and I wonder about the level of competency. Like, well, how the hell did all of these documents make it back into here and they look like they were practically unchecked? Right? So the investigators, when they call, they don't give a damn. They don't care about whether the client's employees know how to fill out the documents. They don't care about if my office employees know how to fill out the documents. What they care about is, while they're looking at those documents, things are looking rather fraudulent. You have incompleted documents that were accepted by your business, and we're going to need that money back. Now, mind you, the money that has been paid to me has already been paid out to the employees, the client's employees. It's already been paid out to my office staff. It's already been paid out for rent and other utilities. This money is gone. They came back, and this is early in business, mind you. They came back and they said, hey, we need, just to give it a round figure, we need $10,000. And at the time, I didn't have $10,000. I'm like, well, but they did not care about the fact that the money was already paid out. They didn't care about the fact that the employees, for one reason or another, blew it when it comes to looking at the documents. They didn't care about the fact that the client's employees didn't know what they were doing. They didn't care about anything. All they cared about was, it's wrong. And because it's wrong, now all of the money that we paid you for these messed up documents, you owe us $10,000 for them. So what the state did, or what the investigators did, is they held me accountable. And in this particular case, I had no clue that these documents were coming in wrong. No clue. So they held me accountable. And what they made me do was, first of all, they made me explain to them how a mistake like this happened. They made me also explain to them or create a plan of correction to explain to them exactly what I'm going to do to prevent it from happening again. I had to write up a policy and a procedure, and I had to create a new set of documents that were going to hold people more accountable for making sure that they check these timesheets as people bring them in. I had to do all of that and pay back this $10,000, all for issues that I did not personally do, or issues that I did not personally cause. Now, that's what I would consider as a very high level of accountability. And I don't get to go crying to the rest of the world about what just happened to me. This is an issue that I have to deal with. I got to face it head on or quit, which they still gonna come after me for the money. And so the only thing that I've been asking for is a couple of documents. I just want to make sure that we're, with this new company, that we're actually able to move forward and deal with business. And the point that I've been trying to drive home to these folks is accountability is going to be important. There are things that you should know, that you should be doing. And if you get it wrong, the investigators and the other powers that be that deal with these contracts that I have, the investigators, they're not going to care about whether or not you didn't know. What they'll tell you is you should have known. They're gonna nail you to the wall. They're gonna hold you 100% accountable. In fact, I've never received a document from them that didn't have a paragraph warning in there reminding me of all of the rules and regulations and what they'll do to me if I don't get something right. Accountability, personal accountability. So anyways, I could rag on about this all night long, but I'm gonna stop it here. All right. I appreciate, I don't know if that thing started up or not. Let me check this out, y'all. I'm sorry. It didn't. Let me push it harder. Anyways, I appreciate anybody who is watching this show right now. I appreciate anybody who chooses to watch it later. Please like and subscribe, hit that bell. and share these videos. Okay, trying to stir up some attention. I gotta try to make something out of this. I know that some people get on YouTube and Facebook and they make videos and this and that, and they never see nothing from it. They're just not persistent enough. They don't say anything insightful. Well, I'm working on the persistence, and I think I'm already insightful. So y'all help me out. All right, like and subscribe, share these videos. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Y'all have a good night.